So what's your background? What's your name, by the way?
William.
William, Mohammed. Nice to meet you, man.
Hi. So in this part of the world,
what's your background? What do you believe in?
I'm a biologist and I'm a skeptic.
Oh, I like it. Did you do biology in university? Did you do biology?
Well, we'll see.
Did you do biology in university?
Yeah.
And what did you find? What led you to it? Like, what made you want to do that?
Fascination with life. That's it. That's the easy answer.
Yes. Give me a reason why you were fascinated with life.
Because it's very difficult to explain.
Are you from Scotland yourself? Yes.
That's right. I am from Scotland. Yes. Do you want to talk about something?
No problem. I mean,
You just have the camera.
he's already.
We can talk.
Yes, I think it would be good because it's always interesting speaking to someone with expertise.
More or less. More or less.
In a subject.
It's a nice dog, yeah.
It's very halal, don't worry.
So I want to. Yeah.
You can hear yourself think.
Exactly.
So William, I want to ask you a question.
Sure, go for it.
What's your thesis of how we got here? Not as biological entities, but I'm speaking about the bigger picture. How do you explain it, or what's your understanding of it?
It might not be as satisfying a conversation as you think it might be, because generally my answer is I don't know, which leaves a lot of people like, fuck, that was a shit conversation.
Let me ask you a question. Let me put forward a series of statements, and it'll be very much straightforward statements. Okay, I'm not going to, and you tell me whether you agree or disagree.
I might not be able to do that. I don't like yes and no situations. Life is very complicated.
I don't know. It's nothing about life. I'm speaking about the bigger picture. And then we can go zoom into life. Yeah. Just tell me whether you agree or disagree.
Well, we'll see.
All right. Proposition 1. There is no doubt that there is existence.
Something exists. Yeah.
Okay. Something exists. You agree? Proposition 2, that existence is divided into necessary and contingent. Now let me explain the terms, let me define them. A necessary existence is something which exists without depending upon something else. A contingent existence is something which depends upon something else to exist. Moreover, if you take it out of existence, an impossibility will not occur. Do you agree with that?
No.
Okay, so explain why you don't agree with that.
It's a presupposition that you can't prove or disprove.
I believe it's possibly the easiest thing to prove.
How would you do that?
All right. There's two options. There's three things possibly that could exist. There are impossibilities which cannot exist, like a squared circle.
Right.
Can't exist. Agreed? You have contingent things, which are things which depend upon other things to exist, like me and you. You depend upon your parents, I depend upon my parents to exist.
Sure.
And there are things which don't depend upon anything to exist, necessary existence. Would you agree that this is a fine classification?
No, we don't know. From my perspective, we don't know the origin of the universe.
I have said nothing about the universe.
Well, things that exist have to exist somewhere.
No. Look, in my statement so far, I've made zero mention of the universe. I haven't said nothing about the universe. Yeah? All right. So far, I have been speaking ontologically, okay? Which means I've been speaking abstractly. I've not been speaking cosmologically. I've not been making mention of things of the universe, right? So, let me tell you why it's impossible for there to be only contingent existences.
Tell me.
If there was only contingent existences, we would not necessarily exist.
Okay.
Because it's impossible for there to be a series of dependent things. That's an impossibility.
Who knows?
No, this is a mathematical thing, right? Like, you have mathematical sets, yeah? A set. If you have a series of things, which are all dependent upon something else, you need something outside of that series which is independent in order to make those things exist. Existence would not be possible without a necessary existence.
Maybe so.
No, it's not maybe. This is yes or no. Because I'll tell you why.
Well, for me, it's not.
Well,
because I don't believe it. I don't believe. Like I say, it might not be. It might
Give
not
me an
go the way-
alternative.
It might not go the way you think. Well, because I'm of the position that I don't believe in people knowing the truth. I think that reality is much more complex than we can understand. There's such things you can explore, like different levels of spirituality, higher levels of awareness, altering your mind state with psychotropic chemicals, seeing different places and realms, which are talked about in many different belief systems, in fact. Beings, other entities, other ways of living. These things are, I think, far more complex than we can distill into like one book. So that's my stance. I mean, we exist, and that's fine for me.
Okay, no. These are all cosmological realities. Yes?
I know where you're going.
I'm
but
saying 2 plus 2 equals
to me.
2 plus 2. 2 plus 2 equals 4 is not a cosmological reality. It's something in the mind. It's an abstractation. It's an abstraction, if you like. Yeah.
Well, I can say yes, and then we can continue if you like. But
no, is it not? I mean, can you prove it otherwise? Can you?
Well, let's accept it and let's see where you go with it.
Well, I can tell you as a matter of fact, okay, that no human being who's a philosopher, from Aristotle, who wrote a book called The Metaphysics, up until Bertrand Russell, who died very recently, yeah, who attempted to say logic and mathematics were the same thing, can prove that mathematics, for example, is in the real world from a cosmological perspective. It's an existence. We agree that mathematics exists, but it's not a cosmological one. Going back to what I was saying, in the same way now, contingency, and which is possibility. Possible existence means it's possible for you to have worn another jacket today. Yes? It's possible for that jacket to have been another jacket.
But you copied him.
Yes, but you've had to copy me. No problem. Or maybe it's the opposite. Now, here the point I'm making is, all I'm saying is that we can classify existent things into possible existence and necessary existence. In other words, if you take this thing out of existence, nothing else would exist. That's a necessary existence.
Okay.
Yeah, all right, perfect.
Sure.
You agree?
More or less.
No problem. But you see the logic in that?
Maybe so. I'm not an expert in logic.
No problem. But
no, the actual formalized logic.
No,
I've not studied
logic
it, which is necessary to study it to be able to talk about it effectively. So I'm not.
I think, to be honest with you, it's overrated in a sense, because you have different kinds of logic. You have predicate logic, you have propositional logic. Even if you do, computer science, you're going to do logic to some extent, right? It just requires you to put things together here. All I'm saying is, you cannot, this is my statement, you cannot have a series of dependent possible things. You have to have one thing outside of that series that allows all of those things to exist. Otherwise, what does it depend upon, right?
Why can you not just say that something needed to create that also?
Then that thing that needed to create it is the necessary existent, right?
And can it not continue? Turtles all the way down?
What, into infinity? So into infinity in terms of number or in terms of quantity?
Does it matter?
Right, actual infinity, or what kind of potential infinity? What kind of infinity are we talking about here?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay, so no problem. If you say it's an infinity, if the series is an infinite series, first and foremost, it's impossible to have an infinite series.
Is it?
Yeah, the reason why is because if you have an infinite series and you have something added to it, it will contradict its infinity, right?
I don't know. I think
A
pi
series,
is an infinite number.
a series is by its nature bound.
By what?
It's bound by the fact that it's a series. So if you put something into it, or if you take something out of it, it will contradict its infinity. But let's just say,
Well, we can keep going because it's boring.
yeah, right. So there's a necessary existence.
Yeah. Well, okay. Sure.
Okay, so everything depends upon this, and it depends upon nothing.
You can tell me that.
Okay, no problem.
Maybe so.
Now, if we agree that there's a necessary existence, which everything depends upon, and it depends upon nothing, can you have more than one necessary existence?
I don't know.
It's impossible to have more than one necessary existence because one of them will have to depend upon the other one. So by nature, there will only be one necessary existence. Correct?
Okay.
All right, so we talked about the fact that there must be, logically speaking, even on an ontological level, just using abstraction, there must be a necessary existence which everything depends upon, and it depends upon nothing. It must be one. And it also must be unique. Do you know why it must be unique?
Why?
Because had it had something, for example, if it was a composite, if it was a configured entity of many different parts, then it would depend upon its parts for its existence. For example, like yourself, right? You are a human being, I'm a human being, I have many different limbs, yeah, and parts. And without those limbs and parts, I couldn't exist. So in essence, I depend upon my parts to exist.
At least physically.
Right, so it must be something which doesn't have any parts. Right? It's not a composite.
I don't even. The interesting thing is, I don't mind.
Okay, no.
You know what I
problem.
mean? All of this stuff it actually doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me that much.
No, it does affect you, and I'll tell you why.
Tell me why.
Because if we accept all the premises that I put forward, then in effect, what you've done. One more thing I'll say to you is, right? That thing, if we agree with the fact that there is time, yes, there cannot be something which precedes it. Right?
Okay.
Because then it would, in effect, either be contingent on that thing, dependent on it, or it would be caused by it. If we believe in causation. Obviously, David Hume, you're Scottish, didn't believe in, he had some issues with causation, so I'm not even using that word right now.
Right.
Okay, so here, I want to shake your hand. You said you're an agnostic.
No, I didn't. I'm a skeptic.
Okay, so what do you believe? Do you believe in God?
It depends what you mean by God.
I mean the necessary existent one, independent.
Well,
right?
You're trying to put me into a position where I have to say yes.
No, I don't need to pin you to anything. I've just done discursive explication.
I mean, it's your explanation that I would like. So, what is God to you?
God is all those things we talked about. Because in the Quran it says, "Qul huwallahu ahad." Say He's God, one and only. So it's Allahu Samad, the one that everything depends upon, and He depends upon nothing.
Right.
Lam yalid wa lam yulad. He doesn't have any children, nor was he a child of anything, which shows that there was nothing that preceded him.
Right.
Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad, the completely unique.
Right.
So the things that we said are necessary for a God to be a God are in the things that we've rationalized are in fact in place.
Okay.
So therefore, does this make sense to you rationally?
No, I know where you're going. Sure.
Right. So it can't be, for example, a plethora of gods. Because they'll be
probably not.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with the start. So.
Oh, we did agree with the start. We have to be honest here, William.
No, we don't.
We don't have to be honest. sorry.
No. We do. It's good to be honest, but
Right.
it's hard to be honest when you don't know all the truths of the universe, which none of us do.
We're not talking about the universe.
Well, I am.
Do you know why we're not talking about the universe?
When I say that, I mean existence that we can comprehend, which is what we've been doing in discussion of logic,
No.
which is an existence.
Let me explain to you something, right? This is an ontological argument. An ontological argument means just like mathematics, right? It's something which resides in the mental, abstracted realm. We can easily transfer it to the cosmological realm, easily, right? And it can be applicable in the cosmological realm, but it can exist without a cosmological inference.
Sure, an idea.
Yes, an idea just like mathematics, but a real one, just like mathematics. Yeah. So having
Just abstract mathematics.
abstract mathematics is real, is it not?
I'm not an expert, but I've heard some interesting things about that.
Right. No one will tell you that. I mean, you're not going to tell me that maths is not real.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Same thing is because let me tell you something, right? The scientific method.
Yeah.
You're a biologist. What is it based upon?
You know.
It's based on the philosophy of science.
Right.
And the philosophy of science are metaphysical, non-tangible principles of logic.
Sure.
And so they are abstractions.
Cool.
So the whole of science is based on abstractions. If abstractions were any less than cosmology, then surely they should be underpinned by it.
Aye.
Well, the opposite is true.
Okay, so let's keep going.
So I'm just telling you the epistemic weight of ontological reasoning can sometimes supersede that of cosmological reasoning. You're Scottish, obviously. David Hume believed in the problem of induction. He talked about the swans and all these things, right?
Right, I've never read Hume.
You should, man. He's one of your main guys, you know. Yes, but he's actually probably the greatest Scottish philosopher of all time. Maybe I'm making a whatever kind of thing.
Who knows?
Maybe.
Who knows?
But what I'm saying is that there are problems with science has inductive problems, right? Or limitations, I should say. Yeah, the inductive problem. So, having said that, if we agree that there is an entity which is necessary, which everything exists upon, or which everything depends upon, which if you take it out of creation, nothing would exist, an impossibility would occur, that is one, and that nothing came before, if you do believe in time, then what we should say therefore is that you're no longer that much of a skeptic, are you? Because you've actually taken on board the religious notion.
Well, it really depends, because we've yet to get into the specifics.
All right, so these are in the
real
Quran. In the
interesting
Quran,
part,
right? These are the 4 parameters in that chapter, right? That He is God, one and only, the eternally besought of all, meaning the independent. He has no children, nor is He given any children, and there's nothing like Him is unique. Now, having said this, these are 4 parameters. That excludes Trinitarianism, because we have the Father is God, the Son is God, the Holy Spirit is God. It excludes it completely, because we said there cannot be more than one necessary existence. So if it excludes Trinitarianism and polytheism by extension, we've gotten rid of 2 major religions in the world, which is Hinduism, or one understanding of Hinduism, one understanding of it, and Christianity.
Right.
Right? So we ask the question now, if this is more reasonable in an inference than the atheistic one, what does this, a necessary existence, want from us biological entities in the world? Is there a connection between? Question.
Well, that's a very good question.
Is there a connection between us and this necessary existence?
Why would there be?
Well, we know for a fact, we know from discursive reasoning, that there must be at least one kind of relationship. The fact that He gave us existence, or it gave us existence. Yeah? If it gave us existence, then there is a relationship of giving existence. That's one thing. Yes?
Okay.
So that's definitely there.
Could it be a natural force that gave existence by being a natural force?
It's impossible for it to be a
consciousness to this entity and purpose when I don't see a logical reason that it would have purpose to doing it. It could be a natural force. The natural forces we can observe. Maybe it's mirrored.
It can't
You know
be.
what I mean?
It cannot be material, and I'll tell you why. It cannot be natural.
Why
It
not?
must be immaterial.
Well, it's made of something.
Do you know? No. It can't be. In fact, that's one
So it's
thing.
nothing.
Logically, it cannot be a material entity, and I'll tell you why. Everything which is a material entity is a composite configuration. And as we discussed, a composite configuration is dependent upon its constituent parts. If something is dependent upon its constituent parts to exist, it must be dependent, and if it's dependent, it can't be necessary.
Right, no, I understand what you're saying.
Right,
But
perfect.
I just like
So
to think deeper.
Therefore, it cannot be material.
I didn't necessarily say material.
Well,
I said
natural.
a natural force.
What do we mean by natural?
Well, both of us here are not experts in the cutting edge of particle physics, right?
No.
So we don't know all that there is. We're discovering more things every day.
Physics is apart from this discussion here.
Conveniently, eh?
Oh, it can be if you want it to be.
Well, why not?
Well, we can bring it in, but what I'm saying is we can have this discussion without having a cosmological inference. That's how deep it is. This is almost as if it's a mathematical discussion.
Well, why not be all inclusive?
We can if you want it.
I would prefer. It makes more sense.
So, but we have already from first principles agreed that it makes sense from this ontological level.
I haven't agreed. The universe could have always existed.
I've said nothing about the universe always existing or not.
Come on, you're being pedantic.
Let's go with that. We've talked about ontology.
Existence could have always existed.
No problem.
Doesn't need to have a start.
Do you believe that the universe always existed?
I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea.
Look,
no idea at all.
You're a clever man, right?
Who knows?
You are. You've completed a degree in biology and you're a clever man.
Maybe
We've made an ontological argument. It's been done now. We know there must be a necessary existence. If you say the universe always existed, yeah, which we don't agree with, right?
Who's we?
Let's say, for instance, the theistic position, or to be more specific, Muslims. We believe that the universe had an explicit beginning and that God created the universe ex nihilo, which means from nothing, yeah?
Right.
However, let's go with the fact that, for the sake of argument, no problem. I mean, today I want to, you know what I'm trying to say? I want to give it to you. Let's go with it. The universe always
There's
existed.
much bigger problems coming your way.
Has time always existed?
Who knows? Who knows?
If the universe always existed, my question to you is, has it existed with time or not, no time?
What? Well,
Is there time now?
I don't want to be. What's the right word? Picking on semantics, but what do we mean by time?
Time refers to tenses and action. So we refer to past, present, and future. We refer to a unit of measurement, yes, which measures this transition from past to present, present to future, and so on. That's what we mean by time.
Yeah.
So do you believe in this?
I don't think I can say I believe in it.
Do you believe time exists?
I don't like the word believe.
Do you accept time exists?
I live my life that it does exist, in the view that it does.
All right, so
I can't say definitely.
Epistemically, you accept the value of time.
Well, you could live without a concept of time, I suppose. Just be more difficult.
Is there time?
I don't know, mate. That's the thing. I don't know. I'm an honest man.
William, please.
You exist.
That's the deeper one.
William,
Yeah.
that's fine. So if you don't know much about cosmology, which is your position, it's better to go back to ontology because then we'll get more certain truth.
I don't think we can get certain truth. That's my stance, man.
Is that your
I think
stance?
it's well, yeah. We should go into the depth of it. Like a theistic position is quite an interesting one, rather than a god that maybe just created everything.
If I
and was
say
passive.
no, forget about existence. There is existence. Is that a undeniable statement or not?
Well, we could say that it is.
Yes. Okay. So there are some things. So that is an undeniable position.
Something exists.
Something exists.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah. Fine. There is no doubt that there is existence. Something exists. So the reason why I've taken you out of cosmological discussion is because I know you're always going to say I don't know.
Well, that's the honest position.
No
man.
problem. So in that case, let's go away from doubt into certainty. Because no, seriously, because if
Sure.
but this is, I'll be honest with you, right? The Quran says,
If it's so obvious, then why doesn't everyone believe it?
well, because they've been socialized otherwise. Let me tell you something, right? The Quran says, "Am khuliqu min ghayri shay'in am humul khaliqun? Am khalaqu as-samawati wal ard bal la
I
yuqinun."
don't know Arabic.
I'll tell you the answer. I'll tell you what the translation, right? It says, "Did they create themselves, or were they themselves the creators? Were they created from nothing, or were they themselves the creators of themselves? Did they create the universe? They have no certainty." So in other words, the Quranic position is that an atheist or even agnostic, by definition, will never attain certainty. That is the position, right?
Is that a problem?
It's a big problem because
Why?
I'll tell you why it's a problem. From your perspective, it's less of a problem because you're kind of like agnostic, right?
Well, I've been saying I don't know. So
but
yeah.
for an atheist who makes a definite claim that there is no God,
Yeah.
it's a problem to make a positive, definite claim, but actually when it comes to the nitty-gritty, have very little certainty. Do you see the point here?
No, I already know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
you
fine
agree,
for me.
So you agree with me, and you agree with the Quran, all right? So that's not. a problem.
Saying you're sure there's no God is a difficult position, just like saying you're sure there is one is a difficult.
I don't think it's a difficult position because me and you just went through the process.
Well,
and-
if we mean God by some force outside of physical creation, but who knows what that is?
We
It
haven't
is
used it.
conscious,
Well,
and it gives you a
I haven't
good,
said. I
very
haven't said
different
any.
argument.
True. I have not said anything about force. I've not used that word. I've not said anything about book. These are your words.
Sure,
That's an
but they're
easier
relevant,
argument.
aren't
To, I'll be honest with you, William. It's an easier argument to refute. But let me just summarize what I said to you before, okay? And I'm putting it in propositional terms, statement form. Yeah.
I'll ask you some questions too.
No problem. Statement one, I said, there is no doubt there is existence. Statement one. Statement two, existence is divided into necessary and possible. Necessary means that this existence depends upon nothing in order for it to exist. Possible means it depends upon something else for its existence and it could have otherwise not existed. Necessary means if you take it out of existence, impossibilities will occur. Possible means if you take it out of existence, impossibilities will not occur. In other words, if I take you out of existence or you take me out of existence, no impossibility, no logical impossibility will occur. Therefore, we said if there's a series of things which are only possible existences, we will need something outside of that series which is a necessary existence in order for existence to exist. Therefore, necessary existence is by definition necessary. Therefore, there must be something which everything depends upon, and it depends upon nothing. Also, that thing has to be one, because if there were two necessary existences, there would be two things which necessarily claim to have nothing it depends upon. One of them would have to depend upon the other. And in addition to that, it will have to be unique. If that's the case, then actually what we're saying is that there's one necessary existence which everything depends upon and it depends upon nothing, and existence would not be justified without that necessary existence. An impossibility would occur without that existence.
I've had this
Therefore,
argument before.
no. Therefore, there is, as the Quran says, "Qul huwallahu ahad," says Allah one and only, the one. Allahu Samad, the eternally besought of all, the independent, the thing that everything depends upon, and He depends upon nothing. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. He does not have. He's not a child of anyone, nor is he. Does He give a child? Wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan. And there's nothing like Him at all. It's unique.
Okay.
The parameters that the Quranic discourse puts forward are not only immediately realized, could be argued from an intuitive perspective, but also, right, logically attained through discursive explication of ontological argumentation, like I've just done right here. We don't even need to go into cosmology.
Let's talk about that. So let's say consciousness, right?
Yes.
We have no idea what consciousness is.
That's nothing to do with the argument, right?
Is it?
Yes. Consciousness is very interesting.
I'm going to keep talking because I think it's interesting.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's say this consciousness that we apparently view the world through, right? We don't know where it comes from. We haven't discovered that in science. Maybe we won't. Who's to say that force right there is not God itself?
Yeah. Okay. So we say that God is.
Why not?
We say that the things. Because God is a semantic term that comes from the German word "gut." It has connotations, especially for an atheist. He doesn't like the word. So look, don't talk to me about God, right? That's why I'm saying, let's just say the thing that we've just discussed here,
or maybe
with the parameters
experiencing itself.
We're saying that you have two things here. Number one, you have this reality, which is the ontological basis for God's existence.
Yeah.
Then you can say something else. If you believe in causation, you can make the Ghazali argument, which is that everything that begins to exist has a cause. Yes. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. Right. If, of course, you don't believe the universe began to exist, then you don't need to say that this argument doesn't apply to you. But we don't need the argument.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we? It's a nice spiel.
Right.
So let's take it further. So let's say all these things are right.
Yes.
Where do we go from there?
We go from there. We ask the question why now? Because what does the necessary existence, what does this samad, if you like, the thing that everything depends upon, and it depends upon nothing, what does it want from us?
That's an interesting question.
Right.
Why would it have wants?
Okay, why did it put us into existence?
That's the question.
And this is a logical question.
I've heard the answer, and I find it exceptionally dissatisfying.
Okay, tell me why. What is the answer?
To worship it.
Okay, tell me why is that? What is worship?
That's my question.
Right.
What is worship? That's a great thing.
Let me answer the question.
Tell me.
Worship is submission of will.
Submission.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah? It literally means that you voluntarily submit your will to the necessary existence. It's really what worship is. Let me tell you what worship is.
Is it asking for our life and energy?
No. Let me tell you exactly what worship is, all right? Worshipping is realizing who you are. That's all it is.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's all it is. To worship God is to realize that you're a dependent.
So we don't have any real power.
Absolutely. That all of your power is ceded to you from the necessary existence. Your existence is as a result